The gleaming corporate headquarters of TechVision Solutions buzzed with excitement. Investors and reporters packed the main conference room, eager to witness what many were calling the tech IPO of the year. I adjusted my glasses and slipped into a seat at the back, just another face in the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen," the investment banker announced, "please welcome TechVision's founder and CEO Andrew Porter." My ex-husband strode onto the stage like he owned the world. In his $5,000 suit and perfectly styled hair, he looked every bit the image of a successful tech entrepreneur. The audience erupted in applause. "My name is Olivia Chin, and 5 years ago Andrew Porter stole my dream. TechVision's revolutionary ad-driven security system," Andrew began, his voice smooth with practiced charm, "represents a complete paradigm shift in how we protect sensitive data. Our proprietary algorithms can predict and prevent cyber attacks before they happen." I glanced at my tablet and checked the timestamp. 3:45 p.m. 15 minutes left. Everything was about to change. "The journey hasn't been easy," Andrew continued, clicking through his slides. "When I first conceived of predictive cybersecurity, everyone said it was impossible. But through sheer determination and countless sleepless nights of coding, we proved them wrong." I almost laughed out loud. Those sleepless nights. They had been mine. Hours hunched over a laptop in our tiny apartment, while Andrew dismissed me. "Nobody's going to buy security software from a woman," he once sneered. "Not in this industry." Back then I was working as a cybersecurity analyst at a major bank, pouring my free time into developing my idea. An AI-driven security system. Andrew was between startups, living off my salary while networking at tech parties. "The core of our technology," Andrew said proudly, "lies in our unique approach to machine learning. Our algorithms don't just react to threats, they learn, adapt, and evolve." My algorithms. The ones I had spent 3 years building, testing, refining. The ones stored on my laptop. The same laptop that mysteriously crashed the day after Andrew moved out. He'd offered to fix it before he left. I had refused. What he didn't know was that I had already noticed the signs. The late-night phone calls, his sudden interest in my work after years of ridicule, the probing questions about my development process. So I took precautions. "TechVision's technology is protected by multiple patents," Andrew announced, flashing a slide with numbers across the screen. "Our intellectual property portfolio is rock solid." I checked my phone again. 3:55 p.m. 5 minutes to go. My lawyer was about to deliver some very interesting documents to the SEC and the Patent Office. Andrew smiled to the crowd. "Following today's IPO, we'll be expanding into the European market. Our projections show." He stopped mid-sentence. A man in a dark suit entered the room and whispered urgently to the investment banker. The banker's face drained of color. "Mr. Porter," he said nervously, "we need to pause the presentation. There's been a development." Andrew's smile tightened. "Whatever it is can wait." "I'm afraid not," the man interrupted. "The SEC has just received a patent challenge. The IPO is being halted pending investigation." The room erupted. Investors scrambled for their phones, reporters pounded at their keyboards. "That's impossible," Andrew snapped. "Our patents are solid. Who's making this challenge?" That was my cue. I stood, slipping off my glasses. "I am." Andrew's face went from confusion to shock to pale recognition. "You," he muttered. "Hello, Andrew," I said, my voice carrying through the now silent room. "It's been a while." I walked to the front and held up my tablet. 5 years, to be exact, since the day you left with a copy of my source code and a dream of becoming a tech CEO. "This is ridiculous," he sputtered. "Security, get her out of here." "I wouldn't," I said calmly. "Not unless you want to explain to these investors why you're trying to silence the original patent holder of your core technology." I connected my tablet to the screen. Gasps filled the room as documents appeared. Patent filings dated 3 years before TechVision's launch, authenticated development logs, and, most damning, emails from Andrew himself outlining how he had stolen and repurposed my work. "You see," I continued, "while you were filing patents on stolen tech, I was building a paper trail. Every line of code. Every test result. Every timestamp. And now, just as you're about to cash in on my work, it's time for the truth." Andrew's face turned red. "You're lying. I developed this technology myself. Everyone knows that. Everyone knows what you told them, I cut in. But the evidence tells a different story. Shall I walk through the codebase? Explain the neural network architecture? As I can. Can you? The investment banker looked up from his phone. Mr. Porter, the SEC filings appear legitimate. Of course they are, I said. Just like the cease and desist order your legal team should be receiving right about now. Right on cue, Andrew's phone buzzed. He looked down and I saw the exact moment he realized his empire was crumbling. But I wasn't finished. Not even close. For the next hour, I dismantled Andrew's empire line by line, showing how his company had been built on my stolen work. Investors leaned forward as I explained the neural network design, the encryption protocol, the algorithms he couldn't explain. Finally, I turned back to the crowd. 5 years ago, this man stole my innovation and tried to erase me from the story. Today, I'm taking it back. Andrew tried one last defense. You can't just walk in here and... Actually, I interrupted, nodding toward my lawyer who had just arrived. I can. The patent office has already opened an investigation. The SEC has halted the IPO. And most importantly, I paused, letting the silence stretch. As of this morning, I own controlling interest in TechVision Solutions. The room exploded in chaos. Andrew went white. That's impossible. The majority shares are held by venture capital firms. Were held, I corrected. Until this morning when Quantum Ventures acquired their positions. Would you like to know who owns Quantum Ventures, Andrew? I didn't wait for an answer. I pulled up the final document. Incorporation papers showing me as the sole owner of Quantum Ventures, now the majority shareholder of TechVision Solutions. The shareholder room fell silent. You see, I continued, my voice steady, while you were busy playing Texio, I was building something of my own, a venture capital firm specializing in cybersecurity startups. We've been quietly acquiring shares in TechVision for the past year, waiting for this very moment. The investment banker approached, his expression grim. Mr. Porter, given these developments, we have no choice but to suspend the IPO proceedings. The SEC will want to. This is a trick. Andrew cut in, his voice rising. A manipulation. You can't just walk in here and destroy everything I've built. Everything you built? I repeated softly. Let's talk about what you actually built, Andrew. A house of cards based on stolen technology. A reputation built on lies. And now, I allowed myself a small smile. It's all coming down. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Legal proceedings, press conferences, corporate restructuring. TechVision's board of directors held an emergency meeting. Faced with overwhelming evidence, they voted to remove Andrew as CEO. I sat in what had been Andrew's office, now mine, reviewing the damage he'd done to my original code. His so-called improvements over the years were mostly superficial. Like slapping a new coat of paint on a stolen car. Miss Chin. My assistant poked her head in. Andrew's lawyers are here. They say they have a proposal. Send them in, I said, not looking up from my computer. 2 expensive suits entered, briefcases in hand, their expressions tense. I recognized them from my divorce 5 years ago. Condescending then just as they were now. Mrs. Porter, one began. Miss Chin, I corrected, finally looking up. What can I do for you, gentlemen? They exchanged uneasy glances before the older one spoke. Our client is prepared to make a very generous settlement offer. In exchange for dropping the patent challenge and signing an NDA regarding the origins of the technology, he's willing to offer $20 million. I laughed outright. $20 million? For technology worth billions? For software that protects the data of Fortune 500 companies worldwide? 30. The younger lawyer blurted. Plus a public statement acknowledging your contributions. I rose and walked to the window overlooking the city. Let me be clear. This isn't about money. It's about recognition. About justice. Your client didn't just steal my code. He tried to erase me from my own creation's history. Miss Chen, the older lawyer said carefully, litigation could take years. The publicity could damage the company's value. The company's value is already damaged, I cut in. Because it was built on lies. But I'm going to fix that, starting today. I turned back to them. Here's my counteroffer. Andrew admits publicly to stealing my technology, resigns from the board and transfers all his remaining shares to a foundation I'm establishing to support women in tech. In return, I won't press criminal charges for intellectual property theft. They stared at me stunned. That's everything he has left, the younger one protested. No, I said quietly. What he had was an opportunity to build something real, to be a partner in innovation. Instead, he chose to steal and lie. These, I gestured to the documents on my desk, are the consequences. After they left, I called an all-hands meeting. The employees of TechVision deserved to hear the truth from me directly. Standing on the same stage where Andrew had tried to launch his IPO weeks earlier, I faced hundreds of nervous faces. TechVision isn't going anywhere, I began. The technology works, I should know. I created it. But we're going to rebuild this company on a foundation of truth and innovation, not lies and theft. I clicked through slides showing my original development work, the evolution of the system and our path forward. Some of you may worry about your jobs, about the future. Let me be clear. If you're here to innovate, to create, to make the digital world safer, you have a place here. If you're here because Andrew promised you riches built on stolen work, there's the door. Over the next few months, we transformed TechVision. I brought in my own team from Quantum Ventures, promoted overlooked talent, and redirected the company toward genuine innovation. The press couldn't get enough of the story. Tech's greatest heist exposed. Woman reclaims stolen innovation. I gave select interviews, not to gloat but to send a message to other women in tech. Don't let anyone steal your dreams. 1 year later, our IPO launched, under a new name, TechVision Solutions. The company was valued at 3 times what TechVision had ever been. More importantly, it was real, honest, and ours. As for Andrew, last I heard he was struggling to launch another startup. But investors were wary. It turns out a reputation for stealing intellectual property doesn't attract much funding. The day after our IPO, I received a package. Inside was a familiar laptop. My old one, the one that had crashed 5 years ago. A note was taped to the lid in Andrew's handwriting. You were right. I was wrong. I'm sorry. I plugged it in, unsurprised to find the hard drive wiped clean. But it didn't matter. The truth was out. Justice had been served. And I had built something far greater than Andrew could ever imagine. That evening, I sat in my office looking at a photo from graduate school. Me at my first hackathon, glowing with pride over the code I'd written. I wished I could tell that young woman that everything would turn out better than she dreamed. My phone buzzed. A message from my new head of development. The quantum encryption upgrade is ready for testing. Want to take a look? I smiled, opening my laptop. This was real innovation. Not stolen dreams or borrowed glory, but genuine creation and honest achievement. On my way, I replied, heading to the development floor where my team waited. This was my company now, built on truth, run with integrity, and changing the future of cybersecurity. And the best part? I no longer had to live in anyone's shadow. Andrew Porter's betrayal would always be a part of my history, but it was not my future. My future was in the lines of code we were writing, in the innovations we were creating, and in the example we were setting for the next generation of women in tech. Sometimes I realized you have to lose everything to gain something greater. Sometimes your dreams have to be stolen so you can learn how to rebuild them stronger. And sometimes justice doesn't come as revenge, but in the simple power of truth finally being heard.